chip out at 10, I want to go down to the market and grab some photos of people.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
This is Decoded Podcast, Season 6, Episode 43, number 261, Summer School. Epic on-ramp today. I don't know about you, Chris. I needed to talk. You listened. I appreciate that. And here we are. We're going to do a little bit of a podcast. I tweeted out that we were going to start at 10 after 8 a.m. and it's 8:53. So whoever maybe was interested at that time is
They're
nowhere
gone,
to be
baby.
found. They're nowhere to be found, which is fine. One of the beautiful things about what we do on Saturday mornings, typically Saturday mornings, we reflect, we talk, we experience. If people are here, it's awesome. If people aren't here, it's still awesome. And that's just the way it rolls. So we did not podcast last week. I was away and it wasn't going to work. I did consider it. I thought, okay, how do I make this work? And it just wasn't going to fit in a way that made me feel comfortable. So it didn't happen, but it's good that it's happening today. I had some ideas about what I wanted to talk about. Now they're gone. They're gone. I was on vacation, and something that you know about me that I've kind of discovered about me over the years is that I tend to enjoy going to the beach. And this is a very interesting thing even to me because I don't have a beach body, which even as I say it, I don't even like saying it because when I go to the beach, I see all kinds of bodies, which is fantastic. For me, going to the beach, I get an imaginary license, and that license says at the beach, everybody's welcome, no matter what your body looks like or who you are, where you come from. Everybody's welcome at the beach. It is the place where you can take your shirt off and go into the water and play with your kids, and you get your own little plot of sand, and that's where you'll camp out. I love the unwritten rules, the unwritten norms of a beach, the idea of that. So who knew?
I feel like you're unwriting the norms too.
Well, it's wide
because
open.
I get it's controversial what you're saying. I think
Is it?
because so here's a space I haven't, and I'll take this just sideways, and then I'll make sure I get it back to what you were talking about. There's not. I haven't come across. Many conversations, male identifying individuals that kind of talk about beach body, like their own beach body and their sense of their beach body and the normalization of their beach body and like just whatever other kind of tropes that go along with that. Like I haven't been in those conversations before. Like when I think of my beach body is I wear a t-shirt and shorts. I'm not out there rocking the Speedo. I tend not to go bareback. I just don't. I'll wear I have my swimming shirt or whatever you call it. I'll justify it by sort of saying, well, I can reduce the amount of sunscreen I have to wear. I can assure that I won't get burned. I cannot do that. Like there's a lot of protected. It's funny. The conversation always revolves around protecting something. But if I roll it around expressing something, it's funny because then my son has actually said, can I take my shirt off at the beach? And made reference to the fact that I don't. So there's like, again, the unwriting the rules. I think it could be just as complicated to talk about beach bodies from a male identifying perspective as it is any human going down there. There's rules of kind of conduct that happen that going into the beach. You're right. The permission part, you can wear as little and as much as you want. And I've seen individuals down there in full, like long sleeve t-shirts. They're wearing almost what look like long pants in the water. But it's obviously what I've noticed is that they look like it's made of like swimming material. Like it's got that nylon-y kind of look. It's not like they're wearing party tuxedo formal attire into the water, but they're wearing fully covered, sometimes even something wrapped over their head to kind of, but they're in the water playing. So I like this, the unwriting of the beach rules. I like this because you're right. Even when I was down south, I saw a whole lot of people. I'm like, man, like that's a lot of clothing. And then a whole lot of people like, man, that's like no clothing. Right. So I like it. I think this is what stresses me a little bit about being at the beach, to be honest.
Well, for one reason or another, for one reason or another, this whole thing doesn't bother me at all about the beach. Which is weird because I would say everywhere else except the beach, I'm conscious of my body.
Hmm.
Um, but at the beach, it's almost like here's my pass, and I can throw my shirt off if I want. Like when I go into the water, I'll take my shirt off, and you know, um, and I don't care. And I'm looking around, I'm like, there's 100 other people here who don't care,
Hmm.
and some of them, some bodies, they're all different. Like it's just interesting to me that it's the only place where I think I can stand next to someone who identifies as a female wearing almost nothing
Hmm.
and think nothing of it. Like, okay, that they're wearing almost nothing here at the beach. I'm wearing my trunks and my shirt. My shirt will come off when I go in the water most of the time. And it's all good. Like this is the beach. This is what happens at the beach. And who knew that I would be good with that? Because I'm not normally good with my body. So,
Hmm.
which is fine. That's my choice, right? I do it my way. Long story short, there's something about the beach. I don't know what it is. I just like going. I like going. I like setting up. I like setting up. Um, I like being there. I think I like the sounds. I like the smell. I like to see the other humans and how they beach. Everybody beaches differently as well, right?
How they beach. I
How they
like that.
beach. I enjoy that. It's funny. We seemed we seemed to end up very close to this other family almost every time we were at the beach. Just it happened happenstance. Either we arrived and we chose our spot and they were next to us, or they arrived and they parked next to us. And it was is very interesting because I caught a lot of their conversation. So there was this is what appeared to be. I don't know for sure because I didn't ask any questions and I minded my own business. It looked like a family. There was a mother and a father. There were two girls and a son. And they were all the one they were all drinking alcohol at one point or another. So I'm assuming that the girls and the boy were all adults. Um and I could tell I could tell a little bit of birth order by the way they were talking to each other. And anyway, it was just interesting to hear their family conversation and how they were rolling at the beach. And for them, it was part of their beaching involved the mom left for a bit and came back and had Mike's hard lemonade packets, not cans. And I thought that was interesting. So they were drinking this slushy type thing. They all the kids were drinking the slush. I noticed tattoos on their body. So the father had a particular tattoo and the son had the same one, and then the son had another tattoo that one of the daughters had. This was very interesting to me, right? And this was all being done without me literally picking up my chair, putting it down, facing them exactly, and just watching them the entire time, which I would say would go against how to beach properly without getting beat up, right? Because um, again, there are layers there. There's if someone parked their chair and just stared at my family the whole time, I'd probably go over and say, "This is kind of weird. Like, can you not stare at us the whole time we're on the beach?" You know what I'm saying? Anyway, it was interesting, and I enjoyed the beach, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I don't know. It's these are the moments that I tell my kids, you need to be open to everything, because if you asked me when I was 13 years old if I liked the beach, I probably would have told you no way in hell. I'm not going there to take my shirt off and blah blah blah. It's not happening. But look at, the 40-year-old version of me is like, let's go. This is the place where you can take your shirt off no matter who you are, what you look like, how you feel. I would lose my shit if I saw someone shaming someone else at the beach. I would
Mhm.
lose my goddamn mind because it breaks all the rules for me of what a beach is. You can wear as little as you want, you can wear as much as you want. As long as you're not like causing problems for other people, the beach is like United Nations for me. It's come as you are, do your thing. I don't care if you drink. Just don't let it get in the way of, don't damage people, and don't, just do your thing, right? Like, anyway, that's my beach talk. It's my TED beach talk. I don't know why I like the beach. I just do. And when I was there, even, well, on my morning walks, I would walk from the cottage I was at to the beach, to the boardwalk at the beach, and just soak it up. I would literally walk on the sand. I'd touch the sand. Oh, you saw some of my pictures of the water at the pier. I was like, this is fascinating. I sat on a bench, closed my eyes, and just listened to the water.
Mhm.
There are people around me thinking, who's this psycho? What's he doing? I'm like, I'm just doing my thing. And then I was like, I want to capture some of this water. This is really friggin' cool. Then the other day, I saw that this tugboat in the water, and I wondered what it was doing. So I walked up to the end of the pier and I just watched. And then people were coming over and they're just staring at me. And I'm looking at the boat. I want to know what it's doing. You know what it was doing? It was pushing, it was moving buoys in the water, which was really cool. So this tugboat was circling, was going, it was it wasn't going in circles. It was stationary, but it was moving in a circle, and it would move, and the back end would face a buoy, and then I don't know how the captain did this, but the captain would engage, he would shoot water out of the back of the boat without the boat moving forward. So it's like he had the brakes on, but how do you have brakes on in the water? But anyway, because I couldn't tell that there was maybe water shooting out the front to keep the boat from moving. But anyway, he was shooting water out the back to move the buoy into wherever he wanted the buoy to be. I was like,
Mm.
"This is really friggin' cool." Um,
Like
anyway,
nudging it with water, like
yeah,
waves of water. That's cool. That is cool.
without moving in the opposite direction of the water that was shooting out, like, it was, I was like, "How does a boat have brakes?" That's the optical illusion to me, right? Anyway, all that to say is, drop me in a beach environment, and I'm like, I just feel like I fit. I feel like I feel like that's a puzzle I wanna be part of. That's a puzzle I wanna be part of. I don't know
It's
why.
well, because you're in the middle of it. You're a piece of it. At the same time, it's one of those, you're a piece of the puzzle at the same time you're observing the puzzle. It's like this weird kind of split consciousness. You're presented these kind of morning walks that you do. I mean, the early rising and kind of noticing, having the spaciousness to be able to notice stuff is cool. I mean, ideally, if you go on vacation, you can experience some of that spaciousness because you don't specifically have a lot of the, let's say, external controls that tell you you're like at work, or now you have to do certain thing at a certain time. Now I get boxed in by my own routines, so I bring some of those externals with me, but I also really appreciate, being able to get up early and going wandering in the morning. And it takes work for me to not wander with controls that keep me from noticing the stories. So on the on ramp, we were talking about one of the photos that I had taken of a dude walking his dog. and I posted that up on socials. I actually wasn't taking photos of him at first. In the foreground, there's some plants, and I was just playing with something called bokeh, which is just something that's in sharp focus in the foreground, and then everything in the back is kind of faded, right? Like it's unfocused, and that's something you can do. I mean, the iPhone will do that inherently. You can adjust, kind of like put the focus on something that's within 4 feet of you, and then everything else will be kind of uh, blurry. So I was actually just playing with that a little bit and the color of the plants, and I noticed this dude walked past me and went down this. It was like an alleyway, but the alleyway descended away, which kind of gave a really kind of cool perspective. Um, I actually walked and then thought to myself, no, I'm going to go back and get that shot. And then I took 12, 13, maybe 15 shots before I saw the one that, that sort of matched what seemed to be what made that moment curious to me. And I kind of told you how the composition of that, the one that I picked. But I think what this kind of goes back to is this toolkit of noticing and kind of curating and fulfilling the curiosity about like what is actually going on here is everything to me right now in my creative pursuits. And it's different than what if. It's not the what if, which is a good question to ask, good inquiry question to ask when you're sort of creating something. What if I use yellow instead of pink? What if I kind of like use some clay, and then it's more the what is, like what is right there, and am I missing out on an opportunity to kind of have some joy? And the shots that you posted up, I didn't know that because I didn't read any of the. I don't even know if you wrote anything about those photos. But I saw the pictures of the tugboat, and I thought to myself, that's just a good shot. The way that you had composed it, sort of like with the foreground. I think there's one with a like looks like a lighthouse kind of a structurey thing. I forget the actual couple different pictures that you had of the water and the pier, but they were just good shots. And I do believe that if the creative person is pursuing the what is and the noticing, then that comes out in the work. I think to a certain degree, it comes out in the work. Like as you get better with the tools, I think you thin the distance between what it is you're noticing and delivering that same clear vision to somebody else. They still might not understand your story, but what's actually in front of you is a lot clearer to the person that's consuming it after the fact. There's still lots of space for kind of like, well, what's the story behind this? I just thought that the shots that you took and posted up were clear provocations towards a story. What else is happening here? Because it's very, very clear that your elements in here are all arranged very well. Like it's a good kind of frame. So I like that. I like that. I know the work for me though is I'm getting a lot better at carrying my camera with me everywhere. I'm sort of working on that again. And I'm also getting really comfortable with I need to pull the car over here. Like not even questioning the Doug moment from a couple weeks ago. Not even questioning, I got to get out and do something, using that exact same thing with my creative process. I got to get out and get a shot of this. So, and I find the ones that I'm not putting myself out there, like I'm not doing enough risk to kind of like capture it, I really regret it. And you realize afterwards, like there's some things I've taken a photo of the next day, and yeah, I've got a photo of it, but I'm missing the energy, whatever was sparking in the noticing the first time. You can't go back and do it again. So there is something to the spontaneity of creativity as well, which can kind of only happen like what's going on over there? What's going on over there? I know in a lot of ways that frustrates my family because we'll be out walking and then I'll hear from like down the road around the corner, it's like, where's dad? And I've stopped down an alleyway and I'm huddled down taking a photo of like a flower that's just like the color really pops against the concrete. I'm like, no, I want a shot of that. And I've told them flat out, just keep walking. I will catch up. And if you get too far, just text me where you are. I will catch up though.
You know, what you're talking about reminds me of something I've been wanting to do for years that I've never done. that I think now it's time that I broach it with my family. When we're
Longitude. What do you think? What do you say?
when we're driving places, like when we're going to the particular beaches that we've been to in the last few years, I have this craving to pull over and take a picture of the sign of the county or the city that we're about to drive into.
Hmm.
Because um so we were at Grand Bend Beach this last week, and you're in all kinds of these little places, and some of them have cool signs. Some of them just have the standard welcome to whatever. But then the other one's really cool, and I want to pull over and try to get the perfect shot for me, whatever that looks like at that time. But I know that I'm pretty sure it would annoy them. But I think now I need to say to them, listen, this is what I want to do. And I know it's annoying, but if we leave, 30 minutes earlier than we want to, then we can build it in as part of our thing. I want to, and I'm very particular. I don't want to stop after the sign. I want to stop before I pass the sign. So I don't want my car, well, maybe I do. Maybe I incorporate my car into every shot. I don't know, but I know that I've been wanting to do it forever. Ever since I was a kid, everywhere I go, I want to stop and get a picture of the sign of the city or the hamlet or the county that I'm entering. Every time. Ever since I was a kid. I think now is the time to tell my family this is what I want to do on our next wherever we go next. Or just don't freak out if I'm driving and from afar I see the sign and it's a cool one, and you see me put my blinker on and slow down, get in the right lane so I can pull over. Don't just know that that might happen moving forward. Because I know the first time I do it, if I don't say anything, they're gonna be, "What are you doing?" And then I'm gonna hear about it for the next hour, and maybe I don't want to hear about it for the next hour. So I should just kind of prep. I've got some ideas. Now I know my wife worries about safety, so she'll probably say to me, "It's not safe." And I say, well, I want to take a picture of the sign. So how do now we're talking not safe as in if we're on the 401 and I do this, but when we're driving to some of the places we've been to out in the country, there's not danger like there might be on the 401. Um, but maybe we set up a protocol because um, I don't want her to be concerned that when I'm not with her, I'm breaking the protocols that maybe I established when I am with her. So the conversation needs to be had. Nevertheless, this talk has me now moving in a different direction, where I should talk to them about this because it could happen at any time. Like almost now, what I want to do is I'd love to go for a drive in the country on purpose with a goal in mind to grab some of these shots and get to play with my ideas of what I want to do with them. And on that note, our good friend Gary is here. Gary, good morning. Welcome. Gary says, my wife is that way about trees on our walk. I always marvel at the way they captivate my wife. I think it is wonderful to just marvel. I don't disagree.
Hmm. Karen has said that about the ocean and being near water, and she mentioned that the other day Maddie said to her just out of the blue, like, what are you and what are you and Dad thinking about retirement? And I mean, it was just a very brief conversation, but then Maddie kind of doubled down. She said, because you know, you crave water, ocean, beach, and Daddy craves mountain, trees, and lakes. And it just kind of Karen's like, yeah, we still haven't really quite figured that out yet. But it's a known thing. It's a known thing between the two of us that we very much have different landscapes and soundscapes that remember in our WhatsApp conversation, the one with the goals group talking about homeostasis and like what brings you back to that sort of state, whatever your version of balance is. And we crave our brain craves to kind of launch us and then lock us down and then launch us and lock us down. And that for some people can create a really kind of like polarizing up and down and up and down. And for me, I don't like to live like that. I like to try and keep it a fairly consistent wave on that. But in order to do that, I don't want to expressly think to myself, calm down, excite, calm down, excite. I want to put experiences around me that help keep me in that zone where I feel good. And I know for me, Karen has said, um, you know, like I haven't launched the campaign yet to say, hey, when are we going to go do our holidays in the mountains in the middle of snow in a cabin? Um, but it's a known thing that that's what I dig. And I do try, like Gary's mentioning, like going for walks and noticing how it impacts his spouse. I try and watch to see like what is it I don't know, it's like vicarious homeostasis. Like what is it that they're getting from this moment? It's a fluency, right? Um and sometimes I get a peek at it. I think I get a better peek at it. So just I'll close on this. So I took a bunch of photos when we are in Myrtle Beach. It's almost redundant to say at this point, but I have photos of down at Myrtle Beach, and I took four of them and kind of cleaned them and got them looking what I wanted to see about the ocean. And they're ones that they are up on my Insta feed. But they took some tidying and I got them printed out for Karen, and we got some frames and we put them up in our bedroom. Well, her decision was to put them in the bedroom. Um, but the intent there was, I know like it is more likely that we're going to encounter a lake in the next year or trees and a trail than we are going to experience the ocean, right? We're fairly landlocked that way here in Ontario. So I wanted to give something to her for as a birthday gift that would kind of carry on, right? And I think even though so here's how my brain works with this. I have a very okay, I have to do this a different way. Even though I can't feel the same feels that she gets from the ocean, I believe that in taking photos and creating things about the ocean, that I tap into those feels. Does that make sense? I'll do this a different way. When I walk in a forest, I instantaneously am overwhelmed with the sensuality of it. The smell, the sounds, the tactility of the ground. It just all like comes in to the point where I can't extricate myself from the experience. It's a very all-encompassing experience for me to be there. And sometimes I do feel like I just need to sit down on a log for a second. Because even moving, it can kind of feel overwhelming a little bit. And then if I decide to capture that, I never quite capture what it is that I'm feeling. And I've done this before. I've taken photos, I've written poetry, I've done other things. It doesn't match the moment. It's good, but it doesn't match the moment. I reverse that when when I'm at the ocean or the beach. I feel like I could only access some of that big picture feels by writing about it, by taking photos of it, by drawing something, by grabbing an artifact, a fact, physical artifact, maybe a little bit of sand, maybe a rock, maybe a shell. It flips. So it's a funny little bit of I don't know what to put this into. This conversation in general, though, in my natural state, I can process and take in, not process, I can take in and consume the content of a forest in real time. Ocean and beach, I need to do it as from a secondary source. I need to take a photo and think about what are the colors I want to have there? What is the words I want to say about this? And I feel like I get closer to what Karen is feeling about the beach by me doing something creative with it. That's what I'll say. That's what I'm feeling on that one.
I get it. I get it. As you were talking about immersing yourself in the forest, I was like, yeah, except for the bugs, right? Like there were so many mosquitoes on our trip this week. I found myself, well, the boys went fishing quite often, which was a lot of fun, um, watching them fish. But the mosquitoes were like, man, you should see my legs. It's just like, it's insane. I can do without that. That gets in the way of my enjoyment. Um, funny thing, funny thing. Um, the second last time I took them fishing, my nephew was fishing. Goes, oh my god, you should see this snapping turtle that's right in front of me. So we all kind of came over and we looked, and this turtle, this friggin' dinosaur. Okay, it came, it came up enough that we could see that it had lots of moss on its back and a little bit on its head, and I'm like, guys, get a good look at this. Like, this thing is huge. It's only God knows how old it is, but if it survived whatever it survived, look at how big this thing is. And I got a little spiritual at one point because the kids were moving around from section to section along this stretch of river or channel. It was a channel. And this turtle kept moving to where the kids were. And they're like, "It wants to eat us." I'm like, "It's not gonna come out and eat you." But it was funny because I was like, "What's going on here? What?" And they're like, "Try not to get your lures near it. We don't need it biting on it because then it'll be stuck in its mouth." And I was, as you kind of described, I was mesmerized with the moment. I was mesmerized with observing this living thing, how it was functioning, how the kids were responding, how the kids were being respectful of the environment. It was this, yeah. I like you. I get caught up in those spaces. This turtle, though, man, it was something else. Like I can't even show you how big it was with the camera. It was huge, and it was just hanging out with us for that hour that they were fishing. And they literally moved, and they looked down. They're like, "It's friggin' back. It's right there." And it's like it just comes kind of up and just staring at them. It was so neat. It was so neat. I was like, leave the turtle alone. Pay attention where you are because if there are rocks where you are, we don't need it coming out and whatever. Maybe, but then they're like, okay, we're going to leave it alone. And they would move like a significant distance, like 6 to 10 meters away. And they start fishing. And 5 minutes later, they look down and there it is, just staring at them. Um, I was like, I don't know, guys. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna take this as a spiritual moment. I don't know what you guys want to call it. Maybe the thing was just bored and needed some certain time. I don't know, but something.
What I love is like it totally inverts this idea of predator and prey, and you realize that you're not what you believe about yourself is not true for that individual. Does that make sense? Like it's
A
sort of
little
like
bit,
whatever you
yeah.
sort yeah. So part of it is, I'm fairly used to around my house. Like we have a lot of wildlife, a lot of wildlife. Even yesterday, I was heading over to Value Village, got a kick-ass pair of shoes, dude. I got to show you this pair of shoes I got for $9, a pair of old school Pumas.
nine
Yeah,
bucks, sweet.
they're sweet, and they don't hurt, right? Which is
Oh,
good because other people's feet have been in them, right? Anyways, um, we're on our way there, and we Maddie says, "Was that a fox?" So we're kind of
oh.
going down this road to a main road. I'm like, I didn't see what you saw. I wasn't looking at she's like, just over there. So we pull into a parking lot. I'm like, no, that's not a fox. That's a coyote. Because we have them. There's quite a few of them in our
In your
like in
hood.
our neighborhood. Yeah, they've stolen pets and
Oh,
eaten people's pets and stuff. So, anyways, we pull over into a lot where it it would be, well, you've seen my house. If you pulled into my driveway and on my lawn there was a coyote, that's how close we got to it. And it just stood there. Now you could argue, well, maybe the thing was sick, or maybe you could also say, in its mind, you just don't represent anything dangerous in its schema. You're just another moving thing. You're just another animal thing. And if it doesn't have a negative sort of interactive kind of ideation about you, then it's just going to sit there and kind of stare at you. It's kind of like waiting, make a move. We pulled up and Maddie and I are sitting there, we're looking at it, and it didn't look well. I can't even remember. I was gonna say it looked well. It didn't look skinny. I've seen coyotes in our neighborhoods, and you can see like their ribs, the ribs on the side, and you're like, okay, that one's not eating well, whatever. But this one looked healthy, full. Like it looked like, from my non-veterinary background, it looked like it was fairly healthy. But it was just kind of sitting there and it's looking at us, and then it's kind of sniffing the air. And then it sort of takes a few steps and it comes back and it kind of looks around a little bit. Like it wasn't in any hurry. So I'm like, Matt, grab a couple snaps of that. Get the phone out, just like taking snaps. I'm like, and even thinking back, like maybe it could have been a sick coyote. Maybe that in its sense of danger was not on board because sickness is just kind of like messing with its brain. But it's also a good example. For me, I kind of took it as an example, like, the impact, like, we're in shared space, and we have, I guess, the luxury burden kind of projecting the story onto this space. So in my story of this space is that sort of animal is going to want to do one of two things. It's going to attack me, or it's going to run away from me. There's no actual moment in there where it seems like the thing is thoughtfully considering me. I don't imbue that moment often when I tell that story to myself, that there's the possibility that it's considering the implications of me being that close to it. So I like these moments where you kind of get shaken up by this. A few weeks ago, I'm sitting in my, I told you there's a lot of rabbits in my neighborhood, tons and tons of wild rabbits, tons. Every morning, 2 or 3, when I'm hitting the gym, they're like chewing on my plants. There's also a lot of squirrels, a lot of squirrelage in my neighborhood. So I was getting back from the gym some morning, and often I find myself, before I get out of the car, I grab my phone, I check my feeds. I'm just doing one last check. So the door is open and my foot is kind of like hanging out the door, literally like kind of just hanging out. I'm sort of sitting on the side of my chair, just trying to grab a few things. And then I look down, and just another 3 feet from the end of my foot, there's a squirrel sitting there eating something. I'm like, okay, I'm no longer looking at my feeds. I'm like, hey, dude, how's it going? And the thing looks up at me. There's a moment, and then it goes back to doing what it's doing. I'm like, hey, man. And then you start to do the thing that a lot of humans do. Like, you start to pretend like you know how to speak squirrel. And it looked over again, but this was more like the tail kind of went. So like I made a sound that's like, okay, I said something in squirrel language that offended. And then I stepped out, and the thing took 2 steps, but didn't run away. It just went beyond my door. So I kind of got out, closed the door, and it's still sitting there 3 feet away, and it's eating whatever it's eating. And I had this exact same moment, like this turtle moment. I'm like, this is not how the universe works. I'm like, look at the size of me, dude. How are you not like running away? Every squirrel runs away from humans. The whole story of my freaking podcast about back in the day chasing squirrels was because the squirrel was corkscrewing up the tree away from my spouse and our dog, right? Predator, prey. This moment of the turtle coming up, it's fascinating because these kind of moments where you feel like you're actually in balance with your environment, like there's a really kind of cool gift in that, because that means the story is suspended for a second. You're not like, it's not going to eat you, obviously, but it's amazing the kind of thinking that just kind of falls into that moment where you're not, that thing is actually considering you in the same way you're considering it. I think that's also that's basically what kids' books are based on, our ability to kind of consider that, these fictional little animal creatures are considering us as well, and we're going to sort of put a story in their mouths. We see these stories all the time, people in the oceans, and their favorite grouper always comes up and wants a scratch on the nose. who knows what sort of feeding, like who knows if maybe that grouper's just waiting for you to turn your head so it bites off your arm, or people posting up about the friendly octopus that every time they go back to this certain beach, that octopus comes out and it just wants to play. I don't know.
It's the whole thing is fascinating to me. It's also worrisome that that these animals are getting closer and closer to us. It reminds me of a few weeks ago. Actually, it was July 14th because I have a picture here. We were driving. We were driving to Uptown Waterloo, and for some reason we were driving through Sarah's school neighborhood, which isn't too far from here. As we're driving down this street, there's this one house that I enjoy looking at, and I remember years ago, this house was being rebuilt on this land just down the street from Sarah's school, where there's all old houses, right? And there's this big house. Every time we drive past it, I'll look over and stare at it. And this one time I'm like, oh my God, there's a red fox right at the door. And the red fox is just at their door, sniffing something. I got a couple of shots. You can tell it knows there's something there. There's something
Mhm.
around the stairs or whatever. And this is like in a neighborhood where there's kids playing outside all the time or whatever. So that this was a moment where I'm like, hey, did you guys see that red fox? They're like, no. I'm like, boop, hit the brakes, do a 3-point turn, go back, park in front of this house. Sarah's like, should we be parked in front of the house? Like, this family goes to my school. I'm like, I need to get this picture. And I'm taking these shots, right? I'm like, look at that. It's like right there in the middle of this neighborhood, this red fox. And again, in my non-veterinary opinion, it looks okay. That was funny when you said that. It looks okay and it's doing its thing. It's looking for food. Um, that's what they do, right? They're looking for food. I think I have a picture of the turtle. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but it's right in the middle and it's literally like staring up at me. I'm like, oh, let me
Mhm.
get a picture of you, tortoise, or whatever
Mhm.
you are. Like, it just, I wish I could get that old. But, oh, and here's just a gratuitous shot of bacon on the
Nice.
morning made bacon.
That's the extra, that's why you got that third pack when it was suggested you only get the two, because you know that bacon's either going in the AM or it's going in
Oh,
the
the PM,
lunchtime or the
right?
PM, but not much of that's gonna be left the next day.
When on my walk, I saw a dog hanging out in one of those motorcycle things,
Sidecar, yeah.
sidecar, but it was on the back. It was hilarious. This dog was the star of the show. It's awesome.
Best
Anyway,
life.
yeah, best life. Enough of my pictures, but Gary says there's a turkey in his area that loves to remind traffic that it's a shared space.
We can easily dive into an EDU comparison here. Easily. I've had more than my share of experiences where students have reminded me that I don't own the school. I am not the one that sets, I am not the final word on setting direction. My courses are not the reason why the kids in my class. Like so many things where you get in this, where you really are recognize you're in shared space. Um, there's a whole lot of good reminders that we can receive. And then there's a whole lot of, problematic reminders. I will say any of the reminders that might even, so it's first important to recognize you're in shared space. I think the second important layer to that is that just because you recognize you're in shared space doesn't mean that you get to go and put your hand in front of that turtle. It's just, I think there's a certain element of humility that should sort of fall over this. Now we're approaching symbiosis, or like that. We're Because we share the space, we each have duty. We have duty to sort of do a thing in this moment. In the same way, despite the fact, even if that was a healthy coyote, I'm not stepping out of my car, right? I'm not gonna like, come on over, buddy, right? Um, that wild turkey. I think this is often why we say the gift of being the gift of the forest or the ocean or the gifts of sort of like wildlife is not that they're beckoning you into an intimate relationship with them any closer than what you are. The gift is in the noticing. That right there is the gift. Everything else after that, you have to be cautious. But the ability to notice is what the gift is. So the fact that you saw the fox and the fox was there, and you're sort of making a human story about what this fox is doing, or this coyote who seemed to just be kind of noticing me, or the little squirrel beside. I know because I've been bitten by hamsters. If that squirrel chooses to attack me, and I've seen the speed that they can move at, I'm going to look like the most ridiculous old man flopping around on the ground as this thing is biting me in succession all over my body. And it can do that. That's what that thing can do. So I kind of then step back. So the cool thing is just noticing, like, I'm in the world with a squirrel right now. It's close enough for me to sort of, you mentioned the whole being at the beach and being able to take your shirt off. And that's about the closest you're going to be to another naked person, short of your intimate partners, in a public place. I think there's a similar kind of like suspension of like of assumptions when you're that close to a squirrel. You're like, crap, I'm really close to a squirrel right now. And if you can just sort of sit there and wait to see what happens or kind of go about your day, that's the gift. That's the gift. And like I said, we don't have to do too much work to sort of realize that being in a school, we haven't done too much EDU chat this pod, but being in a school, that's just one space where noticing that you actually are in a shared space is the gift if you can get there. And you really get a sense of the individuals that are in their mind, in the least, believe that they are the directors and conductors of that space. I won't say that my interactions with individuals, the students or teachers, are more positive just because I notice that we're in shared space. But I will say it's allowed me to be far more mindful in what my expectations are in that shared space. I shared that Mel Robbins short video with the goals group, right? That idea of let them. I've actually said that before to individuals, and people really don't like this idea of just kind of letting things kind of happen as they seem to be playing out. I think as educators, we are blind interventionists at all costs. Like, we think we really have to save and fix and tweak and make sure we have positive outcome. And I think the longer I do this job, 10 years left or less, but I think I'm in a space now where some of those outcomes have to play out. You have to let them play out. And then carry the outcome as the learning. So I meant to ask Gary back at the beginning of this too, if it's trees for his spouse, what's his thing? What's the thing that gets him to that space? Or that he feels like what's the immersive experience? I guess you say flow. Yeah. An observant and listener can reveal so much in our school community. Yeah. I think the gift is the noticing. I think fighting our own sort of baselines, fighting our own templates, fighting our own routines to be able to notice. When I was at my new school over the summer and walking around, I started to kind of tongue in cheek, but start up, I hashtag this thing, EDU still life, using that with some of my photos. And, it really was an exercise in noticing, just kind of walking around and not letting something, really paying attention to that moment where my curiosity is piqued. And it's not just because your curiosity is piqued that you have a right to know more. I kind of go inverted and ask myself, what is it about this thing that I find fascinating? And I think that's the better step, especially if we're talking about humans are the things that make you curious. And if you notice that you are in a shared space and that your rule kit is actually different, not better or worse, but different than the other little humans' rule kit, and you don't have to necessarily know more about their rule kit, I'm starting to really appreciate, well, why is it that I'm carrying this rule kit into this moment? Much like your mention of the bugs. bugs in general in the forest are not a part of my rule kit of like I have to be in a forest without bugs. I'm on the other side. Well, not just to give you a real life example. For me, to sort of maintain that middle ground, to keep that wavelength not spiking too much, is I have to accept that I'm going to be eaten. I'm being eaten, consumed as I'm here. So there's an element of tolerance. I could put chemicals on me to do it as well. There's intervention stuff I could do, but the interventions, I try and make sure that the interventions are interventions upon myself, not upon the environment. So I might not call them interventions. I might call them mindsets. I might call them sort of strategies. So, for example, if I want to be in the forest, I may avoid being in the forest on still warm, late afternoons when the dusky is like they're grabbing their last bit of takeout off my forehead, eating me alive. Um, Complete side note. Did you see that video I posted up on Insta about the wasp eating ground beef?
I want to say yes, but it's not.
Just like in the last week, sitting out back in my backyard, and there was a friend over, one of my kids' friends, and we noticed that a wasp kept on coming in. We were having taco night Tuesday, just this past Tuesday, and this wasp came down and was sort of like not going for the sweet stuff, but going right for the chopped up ground beef. And we were all at the table fascinated by this, and we're like, yeah, I guess wasps are carnivores. And we're sitting there and we see it sort of like on the ground beef, and then my daughter's friend's like, it's actually biting it. We're like, what? And so it was like pincing off a chunk of beef, and then it grabbed it and it flew off with it. I was like, what? They do that? And then, but we kind of accept that's it seems entirely reasonable. Entirely reasonable. But then I filmed it in slow motion. Just there's a short clip just of it. And I just dropped a narrative over it saying, like, I don't think I ever really considered that wasps are actually carnivores. And it came back and it grabbed a couple pieces. So it was like taking this home, takeout back to the hive somewhere. Accepting that, noticing in a shared space. And it was funny, as soon as we started to watch that it was just feeding, the whole stress, because the counter spin there is you get a wasp on the table, you're not automatically doing the story. So a wasp near your drink, you're not automatically cueing into the story like, this is just a wasp going about its business today. And for them, it's survival. They're bringing home food. They're not going out and taking photos. They're not writing poetry. Maybe they do, we just don't understand it, but they kind of exist in this kind of like level of life that, they're kind of doing more work than play. So as soon as we saw that they was chewing off the food and flying off with it, it's like, this is no different than Chids grabbing Chinese food for his fam. He's just not poloing it up saying, yeah, I can't wait to get the spring rolls because I'm starving, right? Like but it's bringing takeout home, right?
It 100%. It is fascinating to observe nature do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little jealous that, you know, it got some of your tacos. It reminds me of the tacos we had at the New Market, Foodapalooza, which was
Yeah.
delicious.
Props to
Um,
Made in Mexico. Props to Made in Mexico.
100%. And I think it's going to elevate my taco game here at home. I can't eat tacos the way that we eat them here. It's
Mm,
so pedestrian and boring. I need to do something different.
mhm.
And if the family's not into it, that's fine. I'll just do, I'll spice up my own tacos that night. They don't have to participate if they don't want to. That's where I'm going with this. I love it. Um, Gary's responding to your question about what does he do
Mhm.
when the wife is staring at these trees. He says it depends on his mood. Sometimes just being in nature, listening to the sounds, and other times
Mhm.
it is observing the interaction of people in different settings.
No rules on this, right? But I think it's good to know. It's good to know the thing. It's good to, and like I blabbed on way too long. I recognize I don't automatically connect with the sounds of the beach. But as I kind of watch other people, like I have to do it from a vicarious perspective. and then I can kind of like process through and I can find myself um, getting some relax, some chill off of it. What was the I saw some, it was they talking about some of those soundscapes and sort of smellscapes that are good for our brains. And Karen was talking about how she really likes the sound of wind in the trees. And I said, I do too. I said, but it's a very specific frequency of it. And I said, my preference as far as tree wind, is that a thing? Tree wind goes, is that it's the sound of the actual branches knocking off each other and hearing the wind. And the wind has to be actually quite strong to create a sound on a bare branch. Like it has to be moving faster, or the density of the branches have to be pretty close. Without leaves, there isn't the same percussive windy sound. So she likes the swooshing of the the leafy limbs, which also means it's a season, right? So you're only getting that typically the version that she wants is at the height of summer when everything's kind of lush. For me, the one that I'm describing is fall and winter wind through the trees, which again, this is her with the ocean and me with the mountains. I said as far as summer wind sound, like connected with plants, I like it, the sound of it moving through tall grass. I said, but I have to be sitting and the grass has to be above my head. So there's a memory play coming out on this, but that's the sound. That sound of the wind shushing through the grass is my summer wind sound with plants. That's the recipe, I guess. I like knowing that kind of stuff about myself. I would say 10 years ago, I had no clue about this. I couldn't put words to the things that actually helped get me back to that middle zone. I knew it when I was in it, or I knew it just after it that I felt good, but I wouldn't have been able to seek it. It always felt like it just kind of happened, which makes it seem like impossible. Like it seems like it's there like the universe had to align for me to have a good experience in a thing. I like now as I'm the age I'm at that I can actually put the words, say the words in that help me kind of um make concrete what makes me feel good, get me back to that middle ground. I like that.
Gary says that the rain through the tree leaves and movement of water in river versus beach waves. I'm assuming that's what he prefers.
Mhm.
I Speaking of wind, it reminded me of so sitting on the beach
Mhm.
under an umbrella. You can the the I guess the perfect sound for me is you can hear the waves. You can hear people talking and doing their thing at the beach, and then you get a breeze,
Mm.
and this breeze comes in and under your umbrella, so it feels it's the contrast of being in extreme heat and yet feeling this cool breeze come across your my head, because I don't have any hair, right? It just kind of it's that relief that you get every now and again from heat heat to cool. um, it's the same as stepping out from under that umbrella and walking on the very hot sand to get to the extremely cold water. Um, those extremes work well for me at the beach. I re- there was one time Sarah and I walked into the water. The boys were in the water with their cousins playing football, and Sarah and I were like, "Let's go into the water." So we go into the water. You step in, it gets to like right above my knees, and I'm like, "This is cold." And we're standing there we're holding hands, and this other couple comes past us holding hands, and the lady is like ooh 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 with every step in the cold, and the husband's like, just keep moving, just keep moving. I looked at him like, I'm screwed. I stopped, and they're laughing at us as they're marching into the water, and they're like literally shaking because of like feeling that cold water just hit you, and Sarah and I are frozen. And I'm like, yeah, this is good. I think I'm going to step out now. And it was just funny. Two couples. both acknowledging this contrast, and the one couple saying, just don't stop. Stop thinking and just keep moving. And Sarah and I are like, too late. We're thinking, we're not moving, we're frozen. It was an interesting, it would have been a great little video. Anyway,
The
the theme,
problems when the brain is fully engaged, eh?
when the brain thinks, sometimes it is just not good.
Mm-hmm.
Just not good.
Yep.
But anyway, Clough, on that note, unless you have more to say, I think that this is going to do it for episode 43 of season 6. Old men getting gas in the morning at Costco. Is that what
Yeah.
it's? Oh,
Yeah. I'm working on a piece.
uh,
So
poetry.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was funny this morning. It was funny this morning. So it's a little bit like my Walmart stories.
Oh, but now it's Costco.
Yeah, at the Costco gas station. So
That's cool. Okay, I'm looking forward to reading that when it comes out. Gary, thanks for hanging with us. Sorry that
yeah, for sure.
last weekend, I imagine you, Gary, sitting at the computer on YouTube waiting for Decoded Podcast and never came. Poor
Yeah, and
Gary.
just living our lives, eh? We're just out there living our lives. So I mean, funny, like stay tuned, Gary. Stay tuned because season 7 is launching soon. We're doing a lot of work in the background to prepare for season 7 of Decoded. Which I don't know. Do we keep calling it season? Do we just call it year 7? I don't know.
I'm good, man. Either way, like whatever.
Keep it with season.
Because some people don't do seasons by year,
That's true. That is
right?
true.
So, I mean, we could say year 7 because our seasons do go a full year. Some people have probably, 3 seasons a year, maybe. I don't know how they do it, and I don't care. I
Don't
think we
care.
do what we want. Maybe we do change it to year. I don't know. Instead of S7, it'd be Y7. Year 7.
Y7 breaking convention. Doing it like we want to. I'm looking forward to bringing some new thinking to our conversations because of my portfolio change and
Mhm.
also being in a new school, right? So there's going to be new content, new noticing, new stuff to notice.
There
That's the best way.
certainly is going to be a shift, and I like that because things shift as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time. Okay, well, Clough, have a great day.
You
Have
too,
a great
dude. I'm sure
weekend.
I'll see you on social somewhere.
I'm sure, Gary, thank you for wishing us a great day. We wish you a great
Yeah, have
night
a great
too.
day, Gary. Get out there and notice. Get out there and notice.
That's it, folks. This was season 6, episode 43, number 261 of the Decoded podcast. We'll catch you later. Peace.
Ciao, man.